Welcome to Please Me, the podcast bringing you bold conversations and big clit energy. I'm Eve, your host, on a journey from trauma to sexual liberation. Join me and my guests as we dive into conversations around orgasm equality, self-love, body positivity, and essential sexual education. Let's reclaim pleasure and close the orgasm gap, one empowering conversation at a time. Last week, I interviewed Davida Arnold, founder of We the Aunties, a community-based menopause support platform. We discussed how the platform empowers underrepresented women through education and moo-moo parties that raise awareness of hormone challenges, offering support and empowerment during the menopausal transition. For ad-free listening and exclusive content, join me on Patreon for early releases, bonus episodes, and more. This month, don't miss my webinar, Embracing Big Clit Energy, the Power of Sexual Confidence, where we'll explore embracing sexual confidence at any age. Check the show notes for the Eventbrite link to reserve your spot. Please Me is for mature audiences. Sit back, relax, and surrender to the pleasure of Please Me.
They think they're too needy. They think they're too this, they're too that, they're too much. And the big first step in this is saying, no, I'm not going to ask you to chop off a part of yourself. I'm not going to tell you, oh, if you just behave in these narrow ways, everything will be fine. I'm going to say, I accept all of you. I see all of you. And we're going to build a life for you that allows you to embrace who you are fully and completely.
Hello, and welcome to Please Me, the podcast that aims to destigmatize conversations about sex and sexual health by turning the sheets into our classroom. Today, I am so excited to have Anneke Elmhirst on the show. She is a coach that specializes in polyamory, kink, and neurodivergence. And she is also a member of her local poly and kink communities. And welcome to the show, Anneke. How are you today?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited.
Me too. Me too. I am so excited to have a fellow kinkster on the show today and a fellow polyamorous person on the show today. And so I kind of want to jump right into that information because I don't think that a lot of people really understand what polyamory is. So I'd love for you to explain it for us.
So polyamory is really just one subsection of a much broader umbrella that we call ENM, or ethical non-monogamy. And so polyamory looks different based on who you are and what you want. I personally, my way of practicing polyamory is kitchen table poly, where all of my partners know each other and are friends. Some of them have been friends for longer than I've known them, and that's how I met them. I'm good friends with most of my metamors, and the idea is that we can all come around the kitchen table and talk things out, and it's not weird in any way. And that's one way that polyamory can look. You have multiple partners and everyone's just sort of one big happy family. It doesn't have to look that way. That's not the one true essence of polyamory. You can have parallel poly, where you do your own thing with each partner, but they don't really necessarily interact. On the really far end of the spectrum, we have don't ask, don't tell polyamory, which is we both know that we're polyamorous. That's really important. That's the ethical part of the ethical non-monogamy. We both know and agree, but I don't want to know anything about your other partners or relationships. I don't want that information. So you see, there's sort of a spectrum even under this umbrella of polyamory.
Absolutely. And I love that you bring up several different types of polyamory. And then there's also hierarchical polyamory, right? Where you have one partner that is your main partner, your primary partner, and then you may have secondary partners that you may not be in as strong of a relationship with or as intense or whatever that may be. And the sky is really the limit when it comes to polyamory and creating a relationship style for yourself that you really enjoy. And I love to also, because you brought up several different types of polyamory, that really people can kind of circulate through many different ones along their journey of life, right? Because, not all relationships last forever, right? So, sometimes people may come and go. And so it really is, a way of looking at love in a different way. And for me, the most important concept about polyamory is that there's an idea that love is infinite, and that love can be shared with more than one person. In other words, you can be in love with more than one person. And I think that, monogamy makes you shut down your natural ability to love many people. And, when you think about a family, you can love lots of people in your family. You can love your brothers, your sisters, your parents, your uncles, your aunts, and you feel love for all of them. But then in a relationship, suddenly we're expected to cut off love for anybody except our partner. And I think that that is actually kind of unhealthy. And so I love the concept of polyamory. I think, it makes a lot of sense to me. And when I learned about it, I was instantly thinking to myself, this is the relationship style that makes most sense for me, because I want to feel love when I'm in relationship. But I also know that I have a lot of love to give.
Yeah, for me, a lot of it is about being able to genuinely connect with every person in my life in the most organic, most authentic way possible. So I don't have to slam that door on potential romantic connections. I can say, yes, our connection leads naturally into romance. Our connection maybe doesn't lead naturally into romance, but we have an intense sexual connection, and that's okay too.
Absolutely, because not any one person, in my opinion, can check all of your boxes, right? So maybe your primary partner is not into, being submissive, but you want to play the dominant role, and so having that outlet to explore that with somebody else that would want to be dominated could be, something really beautiful for somebody that really is interested in sort of exploring more.
Yeah. And I find that your connection with each person is really different. So you do get, even if you have a quote unquote type, you do still get this gorgeous variety of experiences, even if all of your partners happen to fall into the same like general personality category or whatnot.
Absolutely. Everybody is different and everybody brings something different to the table. So I agree with that 100%. We I want to talk a little bit about your clients and what sorts of things you help them with. And let's just first talk about shame, because I know that shame is such a big thing for everybody and how that can impact our sex lives.
Yeah, I'd say that's the one thing that everybody has in common when they come to me is this shame. And it might not be shame around their kink or their sexuality necessarily, but maybe it's shame around their needs. They think they're too needy. They think they're too this, they're too that, they're too much. And the big thing, the big first step in the coaching process is saying, no, I'm not going to ask you to chop off a part of yourself. I'm not going to tell you, oh, if you just behave in these narrow ways, everything will be fine. I'm going to say, I accept all of you. I see all of you. And we're going to build a life for you that allows you to embrace who you are fully and completely. And that's not to say you can't change your behavior in this one area or, pick up this habit or whatnot. But those are changes in what you do, not changes in who you are.
Absolutely. And I find that sometimes people will assume that maybe they can change you in some way, right? And a lot of times in relationships, people assume that over time things will change and it will go your way, right? But in my experience, you really can't change anyone. They need to want to change for themselves. So if there's something glaring that you want to change about somebody that is really kind of a red flag for you, or something that you can't live with, know that if you can't live with it, you need to walk away, right? Or you have to negotiate whether you can live with it if it's somebody that's really important to you.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's one of the joys of polyamory is that you can say, look, I don't want to cohabitate with you, maybe, because our cleanliness standards are too different, or you have pets and I'm allergic. It can be any number of things, but you can still hold this important place in my life despite us not living together. I'm currently in what I consider sort of a solo poly arrangement because I have 4 partners, but I live alone. All of my partners have primaries, fiancés, or wives. And for me, this really allows me to build out my own rich life and also have that give and take and support.
And I'm going to just mention here too that your partners are in relationships, but the partners that they're in relationships with also know that you are in a relationship with them as well, right? Because we're talking about ethical non-monogamy, and there's no lying and cheating involved in ethical non-monogamy. Honesty is the basis.
I'll give you a really small snapshot of how involved I am in my partners and my metamors lives. So metamors are people who are partners with your partner. So my partner's wife is my metamor. And one of them, she is pregnant with twins. I planned the baby shower and I'm going to be the godmother. So yes, she knows that I'm around. She's very happy to have me around. We hang out a lot.
That's a beautiful thing, because everybody is, appreciative of everybody else's experiences and relationships as well, and respectful of them. And so then you can really truly enjoy a relationship with someone because there's not the shame of the cheating, the lying, and all of the above, right? It's a relationship that both people are fully involved and wanting to make better. And there's nothing that's going to hold that back in terms of another person not knowing about it, for instance.
Yeah, I find in my experience anyway, most poly relationships have a much more deliberate and collaborative experience because there's no roadmap. There's no, we talk about the relationship escalator in monogamy, wherein you hop on and things are supposed to get more serious and get more serious until you either live your whole life together or you hop off that relationship entirely. And in polyamory, you don't have that. You don't have people prescribing, you need to live with this person. You need to, like, this person needs to remain a secondary. You can design it yourself. It's almost the difference between like a dollhouse where everything has almost a prescribed purpose, like, the bed, you use it as a doll bed, versus Legos, where you can build literally anything as long as you can imagine it.
That's a great analogy. I love that because yes, the sky is the limit when it comes to polyamory, and you're really limited only by time because there's only so much time in the day and so many, people that you can love, because time is of essence, right? But absolutely the Lego concept is a great way to describe it because you can really create the relationship or relationships that you dream of, and so it's a really beautiful thing. I want to talk a little bit. I'm switching gears a little bit here and talking about kink because I know that you are a big advocate for kink and you're involved in your kink community. And I would love for you to tell people how they could get involved in their local kink scenes.
So getting involved in your local kink scene is going to require a little bit of research. There is a fantastic website, FetLife, that is essentially social media for kinksters. And you can sign up and create a profile, and that way you can find events near you. And the way you might be more comfortable engaging online at first, that's totally fine. Once you're willing to dip a toe in person, what you want to do, you don't want to start with a play party, which is, a bunch of people in a venue or a private residence actually engaging in kink together. That's starting on hard mode. And honestly, you probably won't get invited to those because most of them are closed or invite only and you need to be vetted. So what you want to do is start going to munches. Munch is short for a burger munch, and it is a completely vanilla gathering of kinky people. Our local one is held once a month at a local restaurant, and they love us there because we bring in a giant crowd that orders a bunch of food and drinks and tips really well. And it's not like it gets rowdy or anything. It's just a really big social event where people happen to be kinky. And once you start going to those, then you'll get a little bit more of an understanding of what the scene looks like in your area. If there are clubs that you could go to that are generally those are members only, but they might have non-member nights. You'll start meeting people who are into the same things as you. You might get a better idea about what you're into just by talking to people and getting the sense of, oh, I never realized that this was even a kink, but now that I know it is, I really want to explore it. It's honestly, it's been such a life-changing experience for me, obviously, that I'm a giant proponent of just getting in there and start talking to people.
I love that idea of going on a site specifically, and you mentioned FetLife. And I'm going to mention also here SDC.com. If you're familiar with SDC.com, I do educational webinars on this site. It's an ethically non-monogamous dating site. It's actually where I met my partner. And they have multiple groups on there. Some of them are kink groups. So that is another place that you can look to, find fellow kinksters as well. So, and if you use that promo code, you would get a free trial membership on me. So you can check that out, and I will have that information in the show notes. Are you looking for a sexy date? Look no further than SDC.com. SDC.com is the premier ethically non-monogamous website that is worldwide. It also hosts a wealth of information on sexuality and sexual health, and I host a free live webinar monthly on the site. You can use code 37340 for a free trial membership on me, and be sure to reach out on the site and say hello. So I want to talk a little bit about voyeurism and exhibitionism. And if you can just start off by defining what those are.
Sure. Voyeurism is when you get aroused and enjoy watching people engage in sex or kink. And exhibitionism is when you enjoy being watched while you engage in sex or kink. They often go together. They don't necessarily have to. You can be into one and not the other. But that's going to be a lot of what you find at these clubs is this heightened enjoyment of performing in a quote unquote public space. It's obviously not in public. It's closed off, but a lot of people find it as an aphrodisiac in some way.
100%. 100% an aphrodisiac, because it really, stimulates. It's like watching porn, right? That's why people watch porn, because they're turned on by watching other people have sex. And when you see it in front of you, right, in a club or a party, it is definitely a turn on, and just feeling the energy can really be a turn on too.
Yeah, I had my first poly partner actually was not an exhibitionist when it came to sex, but he was very much a performer when it came to things like impact play or whatnot. And
Okay.
so he thrived off of the energy of having an audience. Whereas for some people, if you're not an exhibitionist, it can be very intimidating or scary, but for him it was empowering.
Absolutely. And I love that you bring up that specific example because, not everybody is going to be into everything, right? So there's going to be some people that, may not want to have sex in public or in front of other people, but they're going to love to spank you in front of other people. And then after, that happens, you can go home and have a really amazing sex scene or something like that, So everybody is different and really embracing people's you know, wide variety of experiences and proclivities, I think is a beautiful thing. And that exists in the kink world. And negotiation exists in the kink world, and communication exists in the kink world that I think is really lacking in our heteronormative relationships that I think we could learn a lot from kink. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Absolutely. Occasionally at a munch, you'll get someone who is going because they think, oh, this is a sexy space and I want to get laid tonight. And the unfortunate or fortunate or the fact of the matter is that kinksters often have a much higher standard of negotiation. So you're not going to be able to walk in and just sort of side eye someone and say, hey, do you want to come home with me? Because they're going to want to know exactly what you want to do. And they might want to vet you with previous partners. They probably will want to meet in public first in a one-on-one setting before taking it into a private venue. And so just because it is an open and sex positive space doesn't mean that the people there are easy. I've met some people who've made that error before.
100%. 100%. And I feel like that is a misconception with swingers as well, that you go to, say, a swingers party or club and that you're going to be able to, like, have sex with whoever is there because everyone there is there for the same reasons. And that is absolutely not the case. Everybody's there for a different reason, and you need to figure out what that reason is and see if there is a connection. But oftentimes, you may leave the party empty handed because you didn't find somebody that you connected with, and that's okay. But realizing that, because you don't want to come across as pushy or overbearing.
Yeah, I think that reframing it not as a failure if you go home without getting laid is really important. Did you meet and talk to new people? That's a success in and of itself. Did you go to a new space and were you brave in going to that new space? Then that's a success in and of itself. My first munch, I sat at the bar for an hour without saying a word to anyone because I was so scared. And when I finally worked up the courage to chat with the guy next to me, it all flowed from there. But I could have gone home after an hour saying this was a failure. I didn't.
Absolutely. And that brings me to a question about the coaching that you do, because this is the area of expertise that you like to focus on, right? And I want to just know what the difference you would say is between, say, coaching and traditional therapy.
This is a common question. I have a decent metaphor to explain this. I wasn't happy with any of the ones that I'd heard so far, so I came up with one myself. So you live in a house. This house is your body and your mind. And sometimes something goes wrong. Sometimes a light bulb burns out. That's easy. You can fix that yourself. Sometimes the basement floods or the power goes out and you don't know why. You have to call in someone to fix that, a contractor, someone who's licensed. That's a therapist. They're going to help you fix the problem. They're going to help you with ongoing maintenance if the problem is chronic. And a coach is more along the lines of an interior designer, where your house could be functioning perfectly, but you still feel dissatisfied. You still feel stuck. You don't know what to do. So you call in someone who has an understanding of, even if they don't know yet what you want, they know what questions to ask. They know that maybe you could paint the walls yourself. Maybe they'll suggest that. They're not going to tell you what to do. That would be more of a consultant role. But a coach is going to help you figure out your vision for your space, your home, your life, and they're going to help you enact that in whatever means they can. Obviously, my realm is relationships, but there are health and fitness coaches. There are executive coaching is such a big thing. There's so many people who are dissatisfied in their careers. It really just matters what you're looking for and where your pain points are.
Absolutely. And having said that, what do you see a lot of in your coaching? Like what sorts of clients have you helped?
Oh, so there's a lot. I'd say it's, what percentage would I forget about percentages. I'd say there's two main camps.
Okay.
There's people who are searching for a relationship, and there's people who are working on a current relationship.
Okay.
And when people are searching for a new relationship, oftentimes they don't fully know what they want yet. They just know they want a partner, but they might not necessarily know why. They might know what they're into kink wise, but maybe they don't know how to find a kinky partner. And so that's when I can sort of almost switch hats from coach to consultant. I can go, well, and I give them the whole spiel about munches versus play parties, et cetera, how to break into your local scene. And then we work together on, who do you want to be? How do you want to show up in this potential future relationship? And honestly, the questions are very much the same when I'm talking with the people who are already in a relationship and troubleshooting issues within that. It's, you need to figure out who you want to be and how you want to show up. What's the effect that you want to have on other people? That's probably the most powerful piece of information that you can derive.
Definitely. Thinking about everything that you bring to the table and how you're going to affect those other relationships is so important. And so I also want to cover a little bit about relationship anarchy and the difference between that and polyamory, because sometimes I like loosely throw that phrase around, but I'd love for you to define it for us here.
So relationship anarchy is, it's different depending on who you ask. The way I generally define it is the belief that no relationship takes primacy over any other except your relationship with yourself. That should always come first, and then friendship, romantic partners, all of these should be held functionally equal. And I have an interesting relationship with the concept of relationship anarchy, because on paper it sounds wonderful, and in practice I think it lends itself to certain artificial boundaries. Or I've seen people, and I'm not saying that this is characteristic of relationship anarchy, but I have seen people use it to justify really irresponsible behavior, in the sense that, well, you want to feel, say, for example, saying to a partner, you want to feel important, sure, but you're not any more important than anyone else, so I'm not going to provide you with the sense of comfort and security that you are stating that you want. So it's complicated for me in terms of how I have contextualized it over the years. but it really is all in the execution. What is the underlying belief system, and how are you ethically interpreting that?
Absolutely. And it seems very impractical in certain ways, the way that you're describing it, because, yes, any one person can have multiple relationships on many different levels, whether they be platonic all the way through sexual, right? And everything in between. And, if you think that all of your relationships are going to hold the same weight in your life, that's literally like an impossibility to me. It just doesn't seem like a practical thing. Yes, you want to give all of your relationships attention, but it's just not practical in my opinion.
There's this balance between being descriptive and being prescriptive. And some people use relationship anarchy descriptively. Like, I have all of these connections. I love them all dearly. My time with each of them varies, but it's not like I am actively prioritizing one over the other. Then you have people who use it prescriptively, who say, okay, everybody needs to stay in their own equal box. And so I can't spend any more time with one of you than the other. And it functions in the way that a prescriptive hierarchical polyamorous relationship would, where someone might say, you need to stay in your secondary box. I'm not going to provide these things for you because that would make you closer to a primary and you're not allowed to be that. Rather than saying, what does this relationship actually need?
Yeah, it almost can be an excuse to not move forward, or I could see it being used as an excuse for sure. Well, I want to jump into our role play section now because we are already at 33 minutes and I want to jump into this at this point. And we talked a little bit about how we were going to do the role play. And so I love this part of the show. It's so much fun. I'm going to be a submissive in a kink scene, and you're going to be the dominant in the kink scene, right? And okay, very good. So action. Hi, Anneke. How are you today? I'm excited to be here.
Hi, Eve. I'm doing really well. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm great. I'm nervous. I'm nervous because I haven't experienced this sort of thing before. And I know we've talked a lot about what I want to do, but I'm just a little bit nervous.
Well, is there anything I can do to make you a little more comfortable here?
Maybe we can talk about safe words to start.
Sure, sure. I use the traffic light system. So red means everything needs to stop right now. Yellow means we need to check in, but after a check in, we can probably keep going. And green means full steam ahead. How about you?
That sounds good to me. And how often are we going to be checking in?
I can, well, we can literally set a timer for check ins, or we can check in between each activity, or I can check in when I read a change in your body language. What would make you feel most comfortable?
I think just going along and maybe checking in once during each activity and then in between activities would be good for me.
Okay, so a check in at the midpoint and a check in between activities. Perfect. I can do that.
Fantastic.
Is there any language you want me to use, or should I just ask what color are you at right now?
That's perfect. That's perfect. And so, can we talk a little bit about the activities that we're going to do?
Sure, sure. You mentioned you wanted to talk about doing some bondage, but we're nervous about that.
Yes, I am nervous because I feel like if I get tied up, that I just have this like fear, and I think I've seen it in movies where somebody gets tied up to the bed and then they're left there and they can't escape and they are just stuck. And that is a really scary thing for me. So I would love to just talk that through a little bit, because I love the idea of maybe getting tied up, but also it makes me afraid.
Sure. So first off, just making sure that you have a friend that you are safety checking in with.
Yes, I did tell somebody exactly where I was going to be and who I was going to be with and where I am at, address and
Okay,
everything.
perfect. So in the unlikely event that I do pass out, you will have someone coming for you regardless. But to prevent you from being stuck, there's a couple of different things that we can do. I can show you a few ties beforehand that don't involve you being tied down to anything. So, for example, I could just do column ties on your wrist and tie those together. So you're free to move around, but you still feel restrained. Or I have these handy dandy panic snaps, and we can attach those to your wrists, and all you need to do is grab them and pull them. So you can pull this way all you like and they won't move, but if you grab them and pull upwards, they will release the cuff or the rope that they are tied to. Would that work for you?
Oh, I really like that introduction of that idea and that type of tie, because I do want to try being tied down, but I like the idea that if anything were to happen, I could get out of the ties myself.
Absolutely. And we can make sure to do you want just hands and legs? What orientation are you thinking?
Why don't we start slow with hands? And if I'm feeling like I want to push myself further, we can add the legs afterwards.
Okay. And I'll have you trial pulling on the quick release so that we both know that you can do it if you need to.
That will make me feel safer. So, yes, I appreciate that very much.
Okay. So what are your hard limits? The absolute no-fly zones.
I think that that varies, but today I definitely don't want to do anything anal because I have to really be in the mood for that.
Okay, absolutely. Any soft limits that are like usually on the table but you just don't want to do today?
No, I can't think of anything specifically.
Okay. You'll need to use your imagination for this part. I have these lovely or lovely set of implements and toys and whatnot. Are there any of these that you are extra excited about or that you are extra nervous about? What are you looking to feel today?
Okay, I definitely enjoy a little bit of pain with my pleasure. So I'm liking the crop that you have there, and I'm liking the nipple clamps that you have there. However, I do like some pressure, but I don't want it to be so painful that all I can focus on is pain and not pleasure.
Okay. So maybe a slight bite, but mostly pleasure.
Yes. So if you use anything, for instance, like on my nipples, I don't want them to be so tight that they're super painful. I just want it to be enough for me to feel it,
Mhm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Is there anything that, or rather, when you think about how you want the scene to go in an emotional sense, how do you want to feel during and then after the scene?
I think for me, I love to feel love, and I love to feel appreciated, and I love to feel sort of worshipped. So that's sort of the feeling that I would love to have.
Okay, perfect. So in terms of our interactions, what I'm hearing is you would prefer sort of a gentle or pleasure dom rather than a sadist or anything in the CNC realm.
Yes, definitely. Although I do love dirty talk.
What do you like being called?
Oh, well, I don't like any derogatory names like slut or whore or bitch. Those are off limits, but anything else is good.
Okay. Okay.
and scene. That was so much fun. And, we really kind of explored how this sort of negotiation could go in an actual kink experience. So I really appreciate you kind of delving into that and kind of, really teasing things out.
It was honestly a bit of a new experience for me because I'm not used to being the dominant in anything.
So that was cool. That was great. You did a great job.
Yes, and I will send you the link for those quick release things in case the audience is interested.
Absolutely. I'll have to find something like that and put those on my site because I have a really beautiful store of sex toys and lubes, etc. on my pleaseme.online website. So yeah, I will definitely have to get something similar to that or those particular ones and include them on my site as well, because I think that is such a cool idea and such a great way to introduce bondage where you can really feel safe. Because I think that that's a common thing that people would feel unsafe with bondage.
Yeah, for me, they're very practical because one of my partners has dyslexia and really struggles with the spatial awareness required to do rope. So with those, I can pre-tie something for him, put on cuffs, he hooks it up to my cuffs, and we're good to go.
Oh, well, there you go. I love that assist.
Yep. Yep.
Well, I want to make sure that my listeners can find you. Where can my listeners find you?
Sure. I'm at allforlovecoaching.com, and my Instagram is also allforlovecoaching.
Perfect. And I want to let everybody know that you can find me as well on pleaseme.online. I have a wealth of information on there. I already mentioned my store. And there are also all of my shameless interviews where I'm interviewed on other podcasts. I have all of my webinars that I've done on there. And so it is a wealth of information. And I want to encourage everybody out there that if you love this episode as much as I loved recording it, that you get your phone out right now and you copy and you paste it and you send it to somebody that you think would also enjoy it, because we want to spread the love, right? And that is how you can help me to grow my show. And also, please leave reviews as well. So on that note, I want to thank you again, Anneke, for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was delightful.
It was a lot of fun. So until next time, everyone, for ad-free listening, exclusive bonus episodes, Eve's library of archived webinars, and early access to new releases of Please Me, become a monthly supporter on Patreon. Simply open the Patreon app on your phone, search for Please Me, and subscribe today for premium content and more. Cheers to finding your pleasure and big clit energy.